Hi, welcome to the Fix Your Gut live stream. My name is Jason Hooper, and we're here again with John Brisson.
Hi, everybody. Hope you're doing well.
Really like to appreciate all of our supporters, all of our listeners and donors. Thank you so much for all that you guys do. And just so you guys know, on Wednesday we're doing another drawing for some more Unfair Advantage. So if you're one of our YouTube subscribers, you're automatically in the drawing. Just to make it easier for me, though, when we do it, if you could make yourself public so that we can find you and set your messages to where we can contact you. Otherwise, I can't get in contact with you about getting your prize if I can't reach you. And so, Messy Pants 29, whoever you are, you missed out, buddy. You missed out on some free Unfair Advantage.
Some good stuff. Some good stuff. Put some pep in your step.
So we're doing another Q&A video stream, and we got some questions here from the Bulletproof forums, and we're just going to go through them. We'll just start with the first one. The first one is on IR therapy. Is it safe to use IR LED lights on the gut? I know Dave has mentioned this in the past, and I personally benefit from LLLT, that's low-level laser therapy. On the gut, occasionally, still, I'm hesitant to do this more than once or twice per week. All right, so the stuff that most of us are doing are probably not as intense as what Dave has. Dave has an IR laser that it's different than low light therapy. So he has a laser and he can focus it on certain parts of the gut, and it penetrates a lot more. And it also takes more expertise to use, and you can hurt yourself with it a lot more easily than you can with an LED array. And so when Dave talks about it, he's using different equipment. So the stuff that we're using is this deal right here, or something like it. You go to Amazon and you get some security lights, and you take them apart, and you can daisy chain them together. Here's the back, and you've got the power goes in here, you connect it, and then you've got different ports where you can link all these up, and then you can like make a head thing, a helmet. That's what they're called, a head thing, otherwise known as a helmet. And you can make them so that you don't have to put it on one spot at a time and move it around. It takes forever. Make an array, put them all there at once, put them on your stomach, wherever you feel like you could benefit from.
Look like you're wearing one of those fancy triangle contraptions that people wore in the 80s to block EMFs. I'm bringing them back, Jason.
The foil hats?
Yeah, well, no, they had special. You remember the pyramid people that wear pyramid-type hats and stuff like that? It was like a cult following of it. They could channel certain energies by doing so and block certain energies and everything. Would make you smarter and stuff like that. There's a picture of Aleister Crowley way back in the day wearing one of those contraptions, but they actually made futuristic ones later on in the 80s that had special lights and special frequencies and so forth and so on.
I do not recall that from my journey through the 80s.
I think you and I were a little bit young. Of course, I was younger than you were, but you know.
Yeah, I was at least alive through the entire decade. But anyway, so LED lights, are they safe? They could be safe. They could also hurt you.
It's best to know what you're doing.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely know what you're doing, and it's good to be cautious and not use them every day, I don't think, especially not on the brain. And there's research that shows that the IR frequencies are really good at increasing mitochondrial function, and so if you penetrate and it gets in good, it helps with the mitochondria. The thing is, though, that you have to figure out what the gut is. Okay, so it's speeding up your mitochondria also, but what else lives in the gut? A lot of other things too, right? Bacteria, fungi.
Archaea.
Yeah, perhaps even parasites too, and it's going to speed up their mitochondria as well.
Correct.
So it could influence the gut biome by doing that. It could do it positively or it could do it negatively. I don't know. And I don't think it's been studied to my knowledge. So that's something, I wouldn't necessarily say that's a concern or anything, but it's just something you need to think about. Also,
especially if you're ramping up their mitochondrial function, you could cause the bacteria to have excess oxidative stress, and in doing so, can cause issues.
Or you could cause them just to reproduce faster, and then you could end up with overgrowth, and you don't want that either.
No, you don't.
And it can penetrate through biofilms pretty easily, so if you have like an H. pylori infection, would it be a good thing to do? I don't know. So I guess it would depend on why you're using it in the first place. If you're using it perhaps for more motility, I think that might be a good thing. Especially if you're using on your lower abdomen and not on like, your intestinal tract, like if you're aiming for your stomach. Sorry, you're aiming for your stomach and not like on your lower abdomen. That might be something that you'd want to do. But if you're aiming for like, if it's accessing, if the light's penetrating to the small intestine, that's not going to be good. So aim for the upper stomach. I would definitely not do it 2 days in a row. I would definitely not shine the LED array on your gut for more than 60 seconds at a time. Otherwise, you could fry yourself. Well, you wouldn't fry yourself, but you could cause damage to some of the mitochondria, and that's not good. And especially if you're going to do it on your head, same thing applies. Not with the bacteria, obviously, but you don't want to. You want to keep it in the same spot for too long. If you're using a single array, you want to move it about every 30 to 60 seconds. You don't want to do it every single day. And if you've got the whole array, it makes it easier. It saves time. You can put the whole array on and just go. But make sure you don't fall asleep or whatever and not pay attention. Leave it on for too long. It can cause harm. So let me double check and make sure I answered all of that question. Yeah, if you're doing it 1 to 2 times a week, that should be okay. If you're doing it more than that, be very careful. Don't use it for too long, and pay attention to what's going on in your gut. All right, John, you have anything to add to that? John, you're on mute.
Sorry about that. I was going to say, especially with LED therapy and everything like that, since it's the untested and the great unknown for a lot of people, make sure that you definitely read up on it before you do it for sure. And like Jason said, there hasn't been too many studies, to my knowledge, if any, using it directly, how it affects our gut microbiome or as our biome as a whole. So I'd definitely use with caution and make sure that you read up on it before using it.
There are some microbiology studies using LED, using infrared light, but there's a big difference between that inside the body and outside the body.
Correct, yes. As far as using skin, yes, there's tons of studies of it changing skin microbiome, but its effectiveness of penetrating and so forth and so on, to my knowledge, hasn't been fully studied.
Yeah, there's a lot we don't know about it. Some people seem to have a lot of, some people have some benefit from it, and that's great. I know Dave uses the concentrated laser. Those things run, I think, around $20K, so a lot more expensive. You can get these for a few bucks a piece from China and just daisy chain them like crazy. And it's out of the DIY projects that you can do. I've got this one right here, which is my homemade transdirect current stimulation device. This one was a lot harder to make. This array right here, a lot cheaper and a lot easier to make. It doesn't really take. I mean, it's labeled out in English. Power supply here. It's pretty easy to do. So if you're into it, give it a shot. It's not going to be a huge investment if you want to do some biohacking, but just be careful and don't overdo it. A lot of people are like, okay, well, if a little bit is good, then a lot of it must be awesome. And so they overdo it, and that's when they run into some major problems. So be careful. All right, the next question. Could you guys discuss megadosing vitamin C? How many grams would be considered a megadose, and would it be worth it for an overall healthy individual to do every once in a while? If so, what is the most optimal time to do this?
Okay, well, megadosing on vitamin C depends on who you ask. If you ask the USDA and the FDA how much vitamin C that we should be taking in every day. It's a relatively small amount. They'll say that anything greater than, I would say, probably 200 to 400 milligrams of vitamin C is probably too much for you. Myself personally, I'd go more with Linus Pauling's recommendation of general health, which means average person should take a couple of grams of vitamin C in divided doses on a daily basis. Mega dosing, however, it just really depends on what you're asking. I mean, there's huge doses of 10 grams to 50 grams to 100 grams of vitamin C that people take. Some people take it orally, some people take it through IV, intravenously for certain issues. So I wouldn't titrate up your dose to high doses on a daily basis unless you're critically ill and you need the excess vitamin C to improve your health conditions, like infections, for example, recovering from surgery. Some people with heart disease might need 10 to 15 grams a day to help reverse arteriosclerosis. And a lot of that has to do with bowel titration. And a lot of people talk about where, you take a few grams of vitamin C, and then you within 30 minutes you titrate up, you take another few grams, and you try to mark to see at what point you have diarrhea. The vitamin C becomes an osmotic laxative, and then from there you take a little bit less every day, and hopefully your body will become more saturated in vitamin C, and over a period of time you'll take less and less. So I would say that the general person, if you're in good health, I'd say every day just take a few grams of vitamin C in divided doses, because it doesn't have a long half-life. And there are some drawbacks to using vitamin C, which, of course, vitamin C in some people with high oxalates, ascorbic acid, of course, in the body can turn into oxalates. And of course, Hooper is a lot more conservative when it comes to his vitamin C recommendations than I am. But for most people, especially if you're healthy, just a few grams throughout the day. If you're sick with heart disease, for example, I'd take between 10 to 15 grams on a daily basis in divided doses. Depending on how ill you are, if you have cancer, for example, you might need necessary to take 50 to 100 grams intravenously. It just depends on your state of health.
Yeah, I've done IV vitamin C before. I've done 150 grams is as much as I've done of that. And it's pretty wild. If you've never done it, it is not really side effect free. I mean, we think of vitamin C as being like, okay, well, it's from nature, it must be side effect free. There's a lot of side effects with vitamin C. Anything above a gram, you're gonna have some side effects from. And that's what some people are starting to realize when they're like, oh, vitamin C megadosing, cool, and they try it and they have some pretty bad side effects. Number one, the reductive properties of vitamin C, it's going to, so when vitamin C acts in these redox reactions and it oxidizes some of the metabolites through the through some of the polyol pathways, what's going to happen is it's going to drop your blood sugar a lot. And in fact, there are some studies showing that vitamin C, a gram of vitamin C a day works just as well as metformin for lowering blood sugar, and that's orally. And another thing you want to think about,
to make sure you definitely take vitamin C with food, is what you're saying, if you're going to take it, or if you're going to megadose.
Yeah, I don't really see any reason for taking vitamin C on an empty stomach. So yeah, you take it with food. That might be better for sure. It also lowers ABA1C, which is the gene responsible for hemoglobin. And that's another thing people don't realize, is when they take a lot of vitamin C that their hemoglobin levels drop. And so you can actually, if you're doing IV vitamin C, you can put an oximeter on your finger and you can watch your levels drop as you're getting the IV vitamin C in. And of course, when you're doing the IV vitamin C, it hits you a lot faster, and there's usually a lot more going into your system. So you're going to get a more pronounced effect than if you're doing it orally, but there still is an oral effect of that too. On the other hand, it's going to help with your iron absorption. So if you're taking it with a higher iron supplement, it's going to help with that. But when you do IV vitamin C, expect to have some symptoms. Expect your eyes to burn. Like when I did 150 grams, my eyes were pretty burny. It was, I just felt like flushed, and I was like, whoa, this is not cool. And so it was unbuffered too. So you might want to consider buffering your vitamin C as well. And the protocol that I used for the IV vitamin C, I also got from Pauling. And Alexis Bright, I don't know if people know who that is, but with the Bulletproof Radio, when Army Leg left the show, Alexis Bright, who's been with the Bulletproof franchise for a long time, she took over as the co-host, and she knows a ton about vitamin C. And so she got me onto Pauling and some other people who are experts in vitamin C and vitamin C overdosing.
What about vitamin C and exercise? A lot of people, there's been conflicting studies that's saying that if you exercise, you might not want to take ascorbic acid, especially, during, or around the time you exercise and a little bit afterwards, because it blunts recovery. I
wouldn't say it, I would say it increases recovery, but I wouldn't say that's what you necessarily want. I mean,
Okay.
It's, like if you take a COX-2 inhibitor after your workout, then it reduces some of those interleukin inflammatory markers that you need for hypertrophy.
Correct.
So
increase muscle strength.
Yeah, like I talked to a guy today at the gym, and he says like he's like, yeah, I've been taking Advil every night for like 2 years. I was like, dude, you go into the gym and lift, and then you take Advil. It's like canceling out part of your workout. You don't want to do that. And I started talking about the COX pathway, and he thought I'd said something else. He kind of went juvenile with that. So the conversation kind of stopped there, but whatever. But yeah, the other thing that you want to consider with vitamin C is that it also, like I was talking about with insulin sensitivity, it's going to drop your blood sugar, which is going to make you less insulin sensitive. And what you want after a workout is more insulin sensitivity, more insulin actually, especially if you're taking creatine, you want to shuttle that to your muscles. So it'd be better to take sugar, glucose, or I like to take Trailose. I'm weird. I'm into crazy supplements, but I think it's really cool. Jason Miller, we were talking Saturday. If you missed that video stream, definitely go watch it. Talking about he takes gummy bears that are made with glucose instead of high fructose corn syrup. It's just what you need after your workout to get going. So, and the other thing that it does is it downregulates the mammalian target of rapamycin, mTOR, and that is going to make your body more catabolic rather than anabolic. So there's definitely a lot of reason not to take it directly after a workout.
But I mean, there are some uses of it, like if you had cancer, for example, or if you had heart disease, that you would recommend someone mega dosing vitamin C.
Oh, totally. Yeah. If you have an insulin sensitive cancer type, vitamin C, the cancers of these cancer cells have 20 times more insulin receptors than normal human cells.
Yeah,
so
they do.
If you're doing IV vitamin C, you could starve them. And I'm not saying that vitamin C is a cure for cancer by any means. That's not what I'm saying.
But it can help.
Yeah, it's not gonna. It might help with your recovery. It's if you're listening to this and you've got cancer, don't stop your treatment and then start I'm just gonna get bags of vitamin C. No, that's not what I'm saying here. I'm just saying that it might help with your treatment and
what have some of the studies have shown that it might help.
Yeah, and make sure it's not interfering with your other medications. I personally don't take vitamin C every day. That's kind of where I disagree with John. I take it when I need it. And that's another thing I learned from Alexis is that when you have a higher level of oxidative stress, you will absorb more of it, and you'll have less of the diarrhea type symptoms. You'll absorb more of it, and your plasma, your vitamin C plasma levels will shoot up, and the transporters will be a lot higher. So I take it when I need it. I take it when I have been exposed to oxidative stress. I don't take it every day because it also downregulates the production of glutathione. So I kind of let my own glutathione, my master glutathione antioxidants work.
But is that because it recycles glutathione, so your body produces less, correct?
Yes,
That would
that's
be
exactly
why.
right. Yeah, that's exactly right. So, there's a hormetic effect. You take vitamin C and it's going to lower your availability of glutathione. So if you're taking it every day, you kind of get dependent on it because of the hormesis. But on the other hand, and so like if I'm going to take it, like, okay, so if you look at the animal kingdom, humans don't make vitamin C. One of the only animals that don't do it.
Correct, one of the few.
And so one of the things that Pauling said was, okay, if a human would make vitamin C, instead of the uric acid cycle, which is sort of where our evolution went to, we did vitamin C. How much vitamin C would we make a day? And it's like 2.5 grams a day, I think.
Correct. Somewhere around there's like 2.5 to 4 grams, depending on how much you weigh. But yeah, that was how much you came. That's how much you personally took on a daily basis. Divided good doses was between 2 to 4 grams.
So I think if you're not taking at least 2.5 grams a day, it's kind of a waste. That's just my opinion. I think that you take it when you need it. You can absorb a lot of it when you need it, and you're not going to get some of the negative side effects. And definitely don't take anything under 2.5 grams, because that's what your antioxidant system that you already have can already do. So
see, my recommendation is take a few grams every day. Maybe stop taking on your supplement holidays that most people should have on the weekends anyway. Like Cooper said, maybe take less, exercising. And if you really need it, like you're suffering from heart disease, arteriosclerosis, for example, or cancer, that's when or you're under great deals of oxidative stress, is when you definitely need to take it.
All right. Next question. How do you feel about grass-fed aged cheeses? I think a really good pastured cheddar. Healthful or insidious? I love the wording on that question. It's like, is this good for you, or will it kill you?
I know it's delicious either way. So, I mean, cheese is good, so moo.
There's a dairy farm like 45 minutes from my house. Not like 45, it's 45 minutes from my house. And they have some really good cheese products. And they have some really good sour cream. They have some really good hard cheese.
Sour cream is delicious. Full of delicious probiotics that get neutralized by your stomach acid, most of them on ingestion and stuff.
Yeah, they have all sorts of cool stuff. But the thing is, like, whenever I ask these people, like, oh, well, what do you think about, or, like they also sell like kombucha there, and they sell kefir. And so they had this kefir stuff, and I was like, hey, what strains are you using in your kefir product? And they kind of look at me like, whenever you ask an online pharmacy if you can see a certificate of authenticity, they're like, what are you talking about? Those don't exist.
No, they don't.
So it's really hard to figure out what's in there unless you try to reverse engineer it and figure out the strains.
Probably some delicious yeast and whatever was growing in the vicinity at the time.
Yeah.
Grab.
Yeah, it's probably like yeah, exactly. It's just something out of the air, which is not necessarily bad, but the thing is that stuff is probably in us anyway. So especially this local farm that's right by me.
Yeah.
I'm breathing the same air. So that stuff's probably in my gut already. I'm probably not going to benefit or be harmed by more of it unless I'm sensitive to something,
your digestion's off or so forth and so on. But as long as it's good, it's healthy for you.
Yeah, it probably won't create a bad situation.
We got to get down to the brass tacks, which is cheese, which, of course, Jason's going to give you the negative, and I'm going to say it's yummy. Eat some of it sometimes.
Hey, it's yummy. I just said I eat cheese.
Okay, I know. But you're going to tell why we shouldn't eat it on a daily basis. I mean, cheese has got a little bit of K2 in there. It's got some nutrition to it. It's just the only problem is casein because of cheap. Go ahead, because hosting cows and so forth and so on.
Yeah, so I guess the cows that are being bred now have A1 casein genes, and what you want is the A2. There are these cows called Jersey cows, and I think I told the joke already on one of the early shows about cows being from New Jersey, and it didn't get a laugh. So I don't know why I'm bringing this up again, but it's not from New Jersey cows, just Jersey cows, and they tend to have more A2 genes. And this farm that's by my house, it's 99.9% A2/A2. So that's the homozygous genetics, and so it's going to have better casein. Casein's not that great anyway. A lot of bodybuilders take it at night because it takes so long to break down.
Oh, it's so bad for their MMC. So bad for their digestion to take it at night. A lot of bodybuilders used to come in when I worked at the vitamin shop complaining of indigestion after taking casein supplements at night.
Yeah. And like, you want protein that you can break down quickly and absorb. It doesn't, the fact that it takes a long time to break it down is not a good thing. And it's typically
makes it more inflammatory.
Yeah, it's typically that way with most foods. So the fact that it doesn't get broken down quickly is problematic, and it might mean that it's not as natural for us to digest as it would be whey protein, the whey portion of it.
And I'll say a lot of it also has to do with genetics too as well. More Caucasian European genetics you are, the more likely that you're able to handle casein. If your ancient cultures back in the day, made cheese and made a lot of dairy products from cows, the more likely chance that you'll be able to tolerate casein. And if your digestive barrier itself is in good shape too as well, has a better chance of you being able to handle casein too. Some people are more reactive to it than others. The same with lactose, for example, lactose intolerant. So, I mean, most Japanese are lactose intolerant because Japanese people didn't consume dairy in large amounts, if at all, until after World War II. So it takes a couple of generations for you to develop the right gut microbacteria and genetics to be able to handle new foods. So the same could be said with casein, depending on your genetics and your gut bacteria and the shape of your gut, whether or not you can handle ingesting it every so often. And cheese is healthy. Jason himself admitted that he ate it, and I do too as well, because, you can get some nutrition from cheese. I'd almost argue more than, I would almost say, most milk that we get nowadays. You can get better, nutrition from cheese. Now, I would doubt to say that you'd be less than butter or ghee, but cheese can still be healthy, addition to the diet every so often.
Yeah, most of the cheese is going to have less lactose and more.
Correct. More casein.
More fat too.
And fat, yeah.
Yeah. With the grass-fed variety, you're going to end up with more monounsaturated fats, and you're going to end up with a better omega-3 to 6 ratio of the PUFAs that you're going to get, or the polyunsaturated fatty acids. So that part of it's good. There is some literature that would suggest that the A1 casein proteins are not only inflammatory, but they also may contribute to diabetes. So if you're prone to that, you might want to avoid it. I eat cheese. I eat grass-fed cheese every once in a while. I don't eat it every day. And it doesn't make, I definitely, and it might be psychological, but I don't feel as sharp, and that's not a cheddar joke. I don't
orthorexic.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. But anyway, yeah, I don't think it's necessarily, I think it's probably has more health benefits than it has, I guess, insidious qualities.
We'll put it yellow, possibly a little bit light green. It just depends on the state of your health.
So like one level up from where Dave has it, I guess.
Yes. I guess so. I guess that's where we would put it, huh?
I think Dave's a lot more sensitive to histamine than most people, and so if you're not histamine sensitive, it's probably okay. But again, it's not one of those, like, I don't think you should eat the same 3 foods every day or anything. So it's good to put into your rotation on your diet. I think, eat it once a week. It's fine. It tastes really good. It's calorie dense. It's, it'd be good to eat at night, I think.
It's better than gluten, so we'll leave it at that.
Yeah. All right. John, can you recommend a protocol to maintain or increase gut bacteria diversity?
Yes, this one. It's a relatively easy question. If your gut micro diversity is low, the good news is, as long as if you still have your appendix, and even if you don't, you have a good chance that if you just give those bacteria what they love to eat so much, you can replenish your gut microbiome, as long as there's not severe overgrowth hindering that. If you just have low diversity, but no SIBO symptoms or large intestinal bacterial overgrowth symptoms or anything like that, it's easy to rebuild it. Dr. Grace, who is a colleague and a dear friend of mine, she developed a fiber protocol that's very good as far as rebuilding gut microbiome by giving it, certain fibers that bacteria love to digest and break down and use as a food source, ferment. I modified her protocol a little bit. I'm not a fan of inulin very much. I think it can feed too many of the bad bacteria, or I guess the opportunistic bacteria. Bad bacteria is a bad word to use for it. I recommend more of using galactooleosaccharide, which was one of the first prebiotics that we got from our mother's breasts when we were drinking her breast milk when we were very young babies. So I think that our body is very welcome of galactooleosaccharides. So I guess if you want my protocol, I haven't really posted it very much on Fix Your Gut, but I have used it coaching people. I recommend 4 different prebiotic fibers: psyllium husk, glucomannan, acacia fiber, and galactooleosaccharides through Galactamune through Clear Labs, which is a GOS. Most of those are considered to be low FODMAP fibers, but they can still help improve your gut microflora by giving the bacteria what they like to eat, so hopefully they propagate more. So that would be what I would do to increase diversity. I generally don't recommend the use of probiotics, as Hooper and I are going to blog about extensively later on. We believe that most probiotic supplements that people buy and take are already dead, and that's why the studies of Bifidobacterium and Lactobacillus, for example, shows that most of these bacteria die off within a matter of days once the MMC cycle is completely gone through, and do not colonize the gut, because most 40 to 50% of our fecal matter is dead bacteria that we eliminate on a daily basis. So a lot of the bacteria they were getting from these cultures, for example, were, when people were taking these probiotic supplements, were just dead bacteria. They were not colonizing the gut. So the best way to rebuild your gut microflora is give it the food that it might necessarily have, the proper prebiotics through diet, so that it can rebound itself naturally instead of taking probiotics, which may or may not colonize the gut.
Did you just say 45% of our poop is dead bacteria?
Yep, dead bacteria and dead organisms.
Wow, that's a lot. That's like almost half.
Yeah, think about it. There's trillions of bacteria in our gut, and a lot of them die off during the day, and a lot of them are replenished during the day.
That's true.
So
there's like an average of 10 pounds of bacteria per person.
Yeah,
so if they're dying off every day, then you should be pooping 10 pounds. Well, I guess not all of them are excreted that way. Some of them.
No, some of them will be excreted through the skin. Some will be secreted through the saliva if you spit, the sweat. So
some of them are cannibalized too.
Correct. Yes, some of them are eaten, which can be a good or bad thing, because that's how one of the ways bacteria incorporate different genetics.
Yep, horizontal gene transfer.
Yep, it's dropping some knowledge on y'all, but yeah, seriously, I would not recommend probiotics for low gut diversity. I like Grace's work, and I don't recommend potato starch by itself either, which Richard Nicolai from Free the Animal and Tim from Vegetable Farm talk a lot about just using potato starch. It likes to feed Klebsiella pneumoniae a lot, and Klebsiella pneumoniae is a bacteria in our gut that is generally, when kept in check, commensal. But it tends, when it overgrows, to be really nasty to deal with, because unlike a lot of bacteria, can also ferment starches, besides FODMAPs. So it's very hard to starve it to get symptom reduction through the FODMAP diet. And it can also spread to other parts of the body. It's the cause of alkalizing spondylitis if it gets into the spine. It's the cause of rheumatoid arthritis if it gets into the joints. And of course, it's the cause of bacterial pneumonia if it gets itself into the lungs. That's why I don't recommend potato starch, because through Grace's research too, that she has showed, it does overgrow Klebsiella pneumoniae. which GOS, Klebsiella pneumoniae doesn't like it very much. Galactolysaccharides, which I recommend in the 5 protocol. So that's how you rebuild your gut flora. It's just give it what the bacteria, what they like to eat. And hopefully they'll regrow themselves as long as other conditions are right, like you don't have overgrowth or you're not dealing with severe digestive issues, then your bacteria should be able to rebound.
I'm going to think of my toilet like completely differently now. Like I think they made the toilet white because it's a giant tombstone, and your toilet's like a bacteria burial ground for the trillions of dead bacteria.
I mean, there was a war in your colon that goes on a daily basis.
Oh yeah.
And if you're healthy, the good probiotic bacteria win. If you're sick, the opportunistic bacteria win and cause you a whole host of problems.
There's definitely a war in your colon, which is why I'm coming out with a new probiotic called Colon Puma, which will win the war for you. Colon Puma. It's made from real puma. It's illegal in most countries, though. Now, like, as we're doing the show, there's like a viewer count at the bottom of the screen, and I'm watching it go up and down. It's so distracting. Like, we start talking about poop, and it's just like, it just starts going up, and then we start using like 5-syllable words, and it just tanks.
Hey, a lot of people like talking about crap and armpit fetishism and pheromones. That's what we bring to this show. I don't want to call it nasty stuff, but it's just what it is. And if anybody cares to know, yeah, there's such thing as fecal bacteria transfers as to new rage and stuff like that.
FMTs.
Yeah, of course, you know, some people, depending on if you're from Germany or not, they might like oral FMTs. You know, so come on, that was a joke, Jason. Give me that one, okay? Come on. Do I have to call it South Park or something on that? I know.
I think we're gonna get censored on that. The judges say, "Oh, it's."
But I will say this: if anybody's interested to go on a tangent just for one quick minute, there have been some eubiome stuff that people have gotten through Grace and I's work that show that if you happen to, let's say, go down on your significant other, it does change your gut microbiome to be more favorable to what they have at the time. Show. And science has studied that. It's interesting. It's very interesting. So I just thought I would let people know that. So.
All right. Moving on. Thanks for touching on vitamins, minerals, supplements, etc. I guess my follow-up question is, how do you feel about the Bulletproof supplement list? Specifically, do you agree, disagree with the order, ranking, timing, etc.? I've based my supplement intake off of this for a couple of years now with some minor adjustments. To get even more specific, should I take more or less vitamin C? Well, we kind of talked about the vitamin C. I'm going to do a rundown of this list. Now, when this list was published, you probably had Tom as a friend on MySpace because it's pretty old.
Tom still has that same picture of himself, and MySpace is still out there.
Is it really? I thought it was done. I thought it went
no, it's still out there. It's you somewhere out there is your snapshot of you 10 years ago. Whatever you were doing at that time. I don't even remember what was popular back then. It's been so long. Heck, I'm getting old.
I think cell phones were the big rage. Everybody was like calling and texting and stuff.
I don't think texting was really that big yet.
Yeah.
No, you still had steno flip phones. But okay, we're getting off topic. Go ahead.
All right, so I'm just going to run down the list. So vitamin D is number 1 on the list. The daily recommended dose is 1,000 IU for 25 pounds of body weight. You're supposed to take it in D3 form in the morning. There's a brand recommendation too. I'm not getting into that, but I think the dose recommendation is it's pretty good. I guess it might be a little on the high side. I tend to be a little bit more on the conservative side, but I get more sunlight outside. I make it a point to go outside every day and get sun. So, you know, I think it's an important supplement. I think most people should be taking it. I think that you should get your 25-hydroxy vitamin D levels tested and see where you are. You don't want to go too high and you don't want to be too low. I think that the Wellness FX says that you should be like around the 70 range, and that's because of your homocysteine markers tend to go up or down until you hit that sweet spot. So definitely check it out.
Yeah, with vitamin D, real quick, don't you think the future would be based on someone's genetics, and also whether or not, depending on the winter or the summer, it should be, lower in the winter and higher in the summer?
Yeah, I think that there should definitely, you store more over the summer and then you'll have less during the winter to follow sort of that annual circadian
I mean,
rhythm.
you wouldn't want to have a high 90 all year round, right? I mean, that just wouldn't
No.
fit in with natural, circadian rhythm like they mentioned. So I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure a good 60 or 70 during the summer, maybe higher depending on if it's natural sunlight, maybe the 90s or 100s if it's natural that you're getting instead of supplemental. And then in the winter, I'd probably stay around 40 to 50. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, that sounds good. Also, the other thing that people don't realize is that when they go out in the sun and then they take a shower, they wash off their vitamin D. It sounds like it sounds stupid, but that's actually what's happening. So don't wash off your vitamin D. You kind of want to let it absorb for a while. So make sure that there's an interval between your showering and your sunbathing. The next one they recommend is magnesium. I'd say that's definitely a good one. They recommend 600 to 800 milligrams a day. That could be a little high, I think. They say
it could also be a little low. It depends on how deficient you are.
That's true. Now the testing for the testing for magnesium is a lot more expensive than vitamin D test.
Especially if you want the correct magnesium test, which is an EXA over even a red blood cell test.
Yeah. Let's see. They recommend citrate, malate, glycinate, threonate, or orotate. I've never taken orotate. I don't recommend citrate.
Orotate should only be used if you need it specifically for exercise recovery. Other than that, I wouldn't touch it.
Yeah, the threonate is pretty expensive, but it crosses the blood-brain barrier. So, I take it. I used to take it every once in a while. I've got some, but I don't take it very often. Glycinate.
Some of the studies with the threonate said it can help me regrow my hair. Is that true, Jason?
I don't think so. I'm sorry, John.
I'm just saying that's what some of the studies show. They claim to help the threonate, which threonate is a spinoff from ascorbic acid, correct?
Maybe not a spinoff, but
okay, spinoff was an incorrect term, but yeah, it is. Don't quote me on this. I think it's It's not isomer. It can be derivative from ascorbic acid, if I remember correctly. The threonate part, the L-threonate part can.
It is a reactant in the sequence. So yes, it's true. But ascorbate, magnesium ascorbate is pretty cool, but it does kind of go through you pretty quickly because magnesium is a laxative because it's osmotic, and ascorbic acid is also laxative. So be careful with that one. I like malate. I take it every day. It's cheap. It's good if you're an athlete because if you look at the Krebs cycle or the citric acid cycle, it's before citrate, so citrates last. So if you have too much citrate, or if you think of entropy, and you think of like buckets, right? So you have a bucket that's full of water, and you have a siphon. You can put it in, and it's going to pour more water into the other bucket until they're both at the same. They're both at the same level. So if you increase the amount of citrate you have, your glycolysis is going to as you're going from pyruvate to citrate, it's not going to be as effective because of entropy. So that's just my theory, though. There's not a lot of literature supporting it, but biochemically speaking, that's the way it works. So I'd prefer malate over citrate. Citrate is my least favorite out of those five. Don't take magnesium oxide, please.
Unless you're using it specifically to jumpstart MMC function or peristalsis of the gut. That's the only thing it should ever be used is if you're constipated. Other than that, don't take it.
Yeah.
It's not absorbed well.
Let's see. The next one's vitamin K2. I talked about that on one of the other shows. It's one of my top 5. I think it's really good. I like the brand they recommend. I still use it. It's awesome. 2,000 micrograms a day, and one of MK4, 100 micrograms a day of MK7. It's good stuff. I think everybody should be taking it every day. Vitamin C, we just talked about. I like to take it in, I like to take the powdered form of it. I also like to buffer it with baking soda. So you end up with ascorbic acid, and you can buffer it with baking soda. So the reaction that occurs, it turns into sodium ascorbate, and then CO2 is released. So it's the cheapest way to do it. And with the bulk powders, works pretty well. I don't take it every day. I don't think you should take it every day. Dave recommends 1 to 2 grams a day. I think if you're going to take it, you need to go 2.5 or higher to get the benefit from it versus the cost that it's going to do to your glutathione production. Dave flies a lot, so he might need more vitamin C. So I don't fly all that much.
I've flown once in my life, so there.
Really? That's it?
When I was 3 years old. I don't like planes. They scare me. Even though I know I have a greater chance of dying in a car accident than a plane.
Yeah, a lot actually. It's the safest mode of transportation.
I'm still on the ground. That's what matters to me.
All right, the next one is iodine. I think it's pretty important.
Yes,
1 milligram per day. I disagree with the form. I don't think that you should do kelp powder.
Fukushima radiation.
There is radiation too, but kelp is also high in it can be high in arsenic as well. Yeah, and contaminants. It takes a lot of junk out of the ocean, stores it. We talked about binders on another episode where you have these chlorophyll type cells, these chloroplasts, and when they get damaged, they really bind to minerals, and it binds to arsenic, it binds to mercury. So I don't like the kelp powder. I like the drops from, what is it, dexidine, deoxidine, something I always... Detoxidine, yeah.
Magnesium and iodine.
I don't know why it's called detox. It's not really a detox supplement.
That's what they call it. It's detoxidine. It's just nazi and iodine. It's supposed to be the most bioavailable form of iodine. I mean, whether or not that's 100% true or not, I don't know. It's elemental, yeah.
It's elemental iodine, so yeah, I guess. I don't know. Anyway, that's what I use. There's been some controversy about iodine because of Herx and some other things. It can also be radioactive, so definitely get a good form of it. If you're going to spend extra money, spend it there. But like a bottle of deoxidine will last for months, so I think it's a reasonable investment. The next one is krill oil, and if you're going to take an omega-3 supplement every day, I would recommend calamari oil over krill oil, because krill oil is not very high in omega-3. It's mostly monounsaturated fatty acids. It has an antioxidant. It has some carotenoids.
As an afaxin.
Yeah. It's just no. It's yeah. So
I butchered it. It's my southern drawl.
It's astaxanthin.
There you go. That's better.
So it doesn't, like, the calamari oil is probably 2/3 EPA DHA, whereas krill oil is like 1/3. So you're getting more monounsaturated fat. I mean, you're not getting a good bang for your buck, in my opinion, with krill oil. The calamari oil has all the same. I mean, it doesn't have astaxanthin, but it does have carotenoids that are preserving DHA and EPA, which is why you're taking it. And so Dave recommends 1 gram a day. I think that would be better spent on the calamari oil rather than the krill oil. If you take too much DHA or EPA, the studies show that it could downregulate human growth hormone. That might not be good. So be careful. with that. Don't take it with coconut oil either. That's bad. All right, vitamin A. You know, it's better. I don't know. I eat a lot of liver, so I mean, I eat liver once a week, and I get some vitamin A from it. The problem with the vitamin A is, you know, if you go with the Green Pastures fermented cod liver oil, it is very, very expensive, and it's very hard to dose out vitamin A when it's coming from fish liver and it's fermented, and you know, it's there is a very low conversion rate of beta carotenes to retinol. So especially if you don't go out in the sun, because you need the light, the UV light, to go through your eye to make retinol. Interesting that you have the retina and you have retinol. So you might want to consider supplementing with vitamin A. I don't think that I would take 10 to 15,000 IU a day. That's a little high. I would probably take half of that. And if you're eating organ meats, probably a fourth of that. It's fat soluble, so it'll stay in your body. You can get a lot of it in and distribute it throughout the week instead of having to take it every single day. So that's my take on vitamin A.
Same with me. I don't recommend most people supplement it. Just because when you recommend it, if you were supplementing it, especially in high doses, it's good to get a blood serum test done of retinol, just make sure you're not overdoing it.
Yeah, selenium 200 micrograms, spot on. I like it.
Yep, same here.
Copper, I'm not sure. A lot of people would probably not do well from copper. I try to avoid copper.
Get your copper and liver that you're taking, or almonds.
We get a lot of copper from chocolate too.
Yeah, chocolate as well.
So excess copper can lead to cortisol problems. And your adrenal fatigue type stuff. With like Wilson's disease, you can actually see rings around the iris. They call them Kaiser-Fleischer rings.
Yep.
And it's from copper accumulation. So a lot of people, and that's genetic. A lot of people could not deal with copper. Some people are copper deficient, but I find it unlikely that people in America would be copper deficient. Next is B12 and folic acid. So I don't recommend that you take any B vitamins until you actually go out and you figure out your methylation status.
Yep, because they will make you sick if you don't.
Yeah,
depending on if you're an overmethylator, and there's different forms that you should be taking. I wholeheartedly agree with Hooper on this one.
Or an undermethylator. And
correct.
Why take, and the dose that he recommends is like 5 milligrams, which is a lot.
And if you're taking methyl B12 and you're an overmethylator and you're taking that much,
yeah, that's bad.
You're going to feel hyper. You're probably going to feel some effects from it.
Yeah. So, and most people aren't going to get tested for that. No matter how much we say, like, go get tested, they're not going to. And they're not going to get their levels tested either. So, I just don't take it unless you get tested. It's not worth it.
I'm saying here, don't.
You're throwing your money away if you're the wrong form, which, how do you know if you don't get tested? And then you could be harming yourself on top of that. So that's bad. All right. So that's my rundown. Next question. Do you know any effects that taking psychedelics, especially psilocybin mushrooms, have on the gut, short-term, long-term, positive, negative, possible hormetic adaptations, possible degradation, or even cannabis, THC, or CBD?
Okay. First of all, don't do psychedelics. Their YouTube has said it on there, okay? So don't bust us for it. But if you choose to use psychedelics, both psilocybin and THC harm gut motility. I'm sorry to tell you guys this. It does not help it. The only indication that it could help if offhand is if possibly you had SIBO with diarrhea or extreme diarrhea, and here's why. Psilocybin and THC and even CBD work on the 5-HT3 receptors in the gut the same way or similar to Zofran. So it would help if you were nauseous. and it would help if you were suffering from diarrhea, but it might not help you if you're, in general health, because slowing down motility, if you're healthy or if you have constipation, is not a good idea. And most people are more constipated than they are having diarrhea. So you definitely do not want to. Now, how each works differently is psilocybin would work the worst on the gut. CBD would probably be the most harmless, and here's why. Psilocybin, of course, is turned into psilocin in the body. Psilocybin first has to be, the mushrooms are ingested, psilocybin breaks down, has to be dephosphorylated into psilocin. And by doing so, it's able to both affect the brain and the gut. In the gut, it affects 3 different main types of serotonin receptors: 5-HT3, 5-H2A, and 5-H21A. All of these receptors slow down gut motility. So yeah, unless you have diarrhea, don't trip on mushrooms. And even then, that's not a recommendation for me. I would even use, there's much safer stuff that you can use, and I would definitely run it by a doctor. THC, not as bad as psilocybin, not as bad as mushrooms. It still inhibits the 5-HT3 as an antagonist, not as strongly on the other serotonin receptors. That's why THC reduces nausea, and of course the activation of the cannabinoid receptor, sadly CB1, which increases, you're wanting a food or giving you the munchies. That also slows down motility, and it also slows down gastric emptying. Now, all these studies were done in vivo in animals, not necessarily in human beings, but through the research that we know of how these receptors work, in vitro, in vivo, in animals, the study of Zofran, which works on 5-HT3 in human beings, which of course has been studied in vivo in humans, as well as mechanisms of digestion within our body. I'm pretty sure tell you that all 3 of these will affect your digestion. Now, CBD, granted, would be the least. It's a very weak 5-HT3 antagonist, and it's a very weak CBD1 binder as well. And it does have some strong anti-inflammatory properties. So as long as your digestion is good and you're not severely constipated, the use of CBD oil should be fine compared to the other 2. I would definitely not do psilocybin if you're having any digestive issues whatsoever, except for the possibility of diarrhea, and I can't even give you that recommendation because it's legal in the United States. But activation of 5-HT3 does slow down gut motility, that is true.
All right, the final question is bone marrow broth as good for the gut as it's trumped up to be? If you do recommend drinking broth, how many cups per day do you recommend drinking? For the past few days, I've been chugging 2 medium-sized mason jars of broth daily. Okay, that's a lot. Is it as good as it's trumped up to be? I don't know how big it's trumped up to be. How big
Everybody thinks it's the next coming when it comes to gut health and glutamine, and just it rebuilds the mucosal layer, and everybody thinks it's the best thing ever. Go ahead, Jason.
Okay. And to speak to that, it's not. The collagen proteins that are in bone marrow broth can be used as a prebiotic in the gut, which may be good, it may be bad. I think straight glutamine is going to be better because it's not in a complete protein. It's going to be more potent. I think it's tasty for soups and stuff.
It's delicious, not doubting that. And depending on if you are FODMAP sensitive, what you put in the broth, onions and garlic make your digestive symptoms worse. I just don't think it's that great for digestion. It's not the holy grail. And as far as collagen supplements, you'd recommend saying Dave supplements would be better, or type 2 collagen for the joints would be better than drinking bone broth every day. I mean, what about histamine too as well?
I mean, I don't agree that type 2. I mean, this is probably another stream. We're coming up on time anyway, but yeah, Dave's collagen protein, or the original collagen protein is in tripeptide form, and we talked on one of the other shows about the difference between taking an amino acid by itself and a protein. Well, tripeptides, it's hydrolyzed, so it's been broken down into tripeptides already. So you're going to get, there's genetic implications that go with it. It's a low inflammatory protein, which means it's not good for recovery. For recovery, you're going to want a high inflammatory protein like whey, because it's going to have, it's going to stimulate more adaptation.
And bone broth is also high in histamine, so if you're histamine sensitive, it's going to make you feel really bad.
Yeah. So I don't know. I think we should just say bone broth. It is what it is. You know, it's tasty. It's good in soups, but it's not medicine. You know, it's,
everything in moderation, I guess, right?
yeah. I mean, it's cool. The other thing is they're starting to jack up the price because of the paleo movement. They're starting to jack up the price of the bones to make bone broth and stuff. And it's not all the bones. It's got to have like the good, like marrow stuff in the middle of it, and that stuff's tasty too. I like to get shank steaks because they taste fantastic, but I eat it because it tastes good. I don't do it because I think it's gonna help my gut. There's better stuff for that.
Would you think meat broth would be better because it's lower in histamine and stuff like that? I mean,
meat broth,
if you're histamine intolerance, just because you can get some of the good, you can get some of the good components from meat broth. I grew up in southern Louisiana, and there's really no such thing as meat broth. It's there is down here in the south.
There's roux, all right, and it's got to be from the skeleton of the animal to make a real stock.
You're right, but down here in the south we eat pig brains, so high in cholesterol is good for you.
Yeah, that's great. They eat that here in Texas too. They call it.
All them pyrons, good for you. Pork brains and milk gravy.
Well, it's like mido, I think is what they call it, like cow's brains or something. Anyway, we'll wrap up the show with that. So thanks to our subscribers. On Wednesday, we're doing a drawing for some more Unfair Advantage. Please stay tuned for our Wednesday show, and we hope that you enjoyed this Q&A. Please leave us some more questions, and we'll answer them next Monday. Bye, guys.
Bye, everyone. Have a good night.